extended highlights of the 2016 Caroline Cooler Cup, the most prestigious social futsal tournament in the world. The 6th edition of the Cooler Cup saw a record 7 teams take to the beautiful Futsal Oz courts of Mount Evelyn. Traditional clubs, the Frankston Dees and Highett Howarths, were joined by the South Yarra St Kilda Arceagles, the returning Carlton Cocks, the Mount Dandenong Rangers, Healesville Hose and brand new club Wandin Warriors. The first game saw the oldest team take on the newest, Frankston and Wandin. The pair fought out a spirited game, with the Dees going close on a number of occasions. But it was debutants Wandin who took the first points of the tournament, with young gun Carl Jackson securing this game winner in the dying stages of the match. On court 1, Highett and Mount Dandenong played their first game of the tournament. The Rangers were on top early with this dashing sideline run from Stephen Campbell, finished by Nick Dean. Highett scored 2 clever goals soon after, giving them an edge at half-time. But from there, it was one-way traffic for Mount Dandenong. Stephen Campbell, Ruben Pandak and Brendan Woodeny put Highett to the sword, taking the 3 competition points, ending the game as 4-2 winners and giving them an early dose of confidence ahead of a long day. Game 3 was played on the main arena between last year's grand finalists, the Healesville Hose and South Yarra St Kilda Arceagles. Daniel D10 Capellaro linked up with Adam Beer to score the first goal of the match before a super team effort from the Hose levelled the scores at half-time. An even second half gave the scorers little work to do, with the game finishing with just 1 goal for each side. Carlton made its first appearance for 2016 against Frankston, which was looking to get a win on the board after an early loss to Wandin. Both teams started well, ending the first half with a goal each. And the game looked evenly poised, but the newly formed Carlton side was exposed in the second half, as Frankston bagged 4 unanswered goals to comfortably secure the victory. Carlton was able to reduce the margin with a late goal, but the game was gone. Frankston took its first win and raced to the top of the table. South Yarra St Kilda and Mount Dandenong were next up on the main arena, and it was a game that the Arceagles will quickly want to forget. Poor defensive structure, ill-timed passes and a classic Ruben Langerak own goal saw Mount Dandenong race to a 3-goal lead in the opening salvos. Langerak made up for his own goal with a great strike from distance to give the yellow team some hope. But Parker McKenzie made this run down the line before laying off to Ruben Pandak to almost put the game to bed. This pair linked up again to score the Rangers' 6th goal, completing a demolition job on the Cooler Cup's most successful team. A late consolation goal for Langerak was the only highlight in a low match for the Arceagles, who were 2 games without a win and needing to find form quickly. Wandin and Highett were up next on the Nike Arena, and there was a sense of urgency from Highett, which needed a swift comeback after an opening game loss. And Chilean Andres Santander was the man to get the Highett team kicking, scoring 2 fantastic early goals to put Wandin on the back foot. Nathaniel Turner put Wandin back in the contest with a brave strike, before Hyatt's Thomas Glaves put Hyatt's advantage back to 2. The second half saw Wandin fire in 2 fast goals, including a clumsy own goal to level the scores. The game was there for either to take, and cometh the moment, cometh Phil Howarth, who belted home this left-footed gem to hand Highett its first win of the 2016 tournament and put the family club back in contention. Carlton took on the happy Healesville team, but there would be little for the Hose to smile about after this game. Phil Robotis took matters into his own hands, ending the game with 4 goals. And while the Healesville squad kept pace in the first half with 2 goals, the might of Robotis was on display for all to see, bagging his 4 goals in a display that made it look like a stroll in the park. Carlton's designated keeper, Aidan Kerridge, added to Carlton's highlights package with a late half-court bomb to seal the Cops' first win for the tournament and put Healesville in a difficult ladder position. Traditional Cooler Cup rivals Highett and Frankston played Game 8, and there was little to separate these two in a low-scoring affair. Jimmy Soufis scored Frankston's first goal to give them the half-time lead. And the respected star doubled that advantage with this patient play. Hyatt's new main man, Santander, stole some of Soufis' thunder, pinching the ball to race away to a late goal and keep Highett in the game. But it was too little too late as Frankston took its second consecutive win and moved them near the top of the tight ladder. The Arceagles and the Warriors faced off on the main arena in a crucial match for the city-based team. The start didn't go to plan when Langerak was stripped of the ball by Kyle Jackson, who got the dream start. Jackson was at it again soon after, finishing this nice team effort from the new club, but the Arceagles couldn't be written off. Capolaro got on the scoreboard to give them hope. But a mistake by captain Matthew Barker saw Daniel Gracia claim the simplest of goals. The second half started better for SYSK, with Capolaro slotting a neat goal to reduce Wandin's advantage to 1. Again, Wandin struck back with Turner setting up captain Paul Taylor. SYSK would not lie down, and after some freestyle futsal, the ball landed at Capolaro's feet, who laid off to Langerak to again bring the scores within 1. But it was too little too late. Wandin took the points in a tight affair and put the new club on equal points at the top of a congested ladder. Healesville and Mount Dandenong were up next on the main arena, and it would prove to be the scrappiest of all Cooler Cup games. No matter what the players did, the ball didn't want to go in the back of the net, despite a number of steel-crunching post hits. A lot of chances went begging, and the final score was the same as when the two teams walked out on the field. The draw, however, gave Mount Dandenong a slender 1-point lead at the top of the table. Two teams in need of another win were next. Old rivals Highett and Carlton took to the court for Game 11. The Cops got the scoreboard ticking, and again it was Aidan Kerridge with a long-range bomb to put the Highett team on notice. But Santander levelled with a neat finish to end the first half locked at 1 apiece. Kerridge was up to his same tricks, launching from his own half to find Robotis' head in a classic goal, before the younger Kerridge, Tyler, continued the scoreboard pressure. Aidan grabbed another lock-away goal late in the second half to secure a convincing 4-1 win and move the Cops into outright contention at the halfway point of the tournament. The two oldest Cooler Cup clubs were next, the Dees and the Arceagles. It was a tight game with no first half goals before the deadlock was broken by Jimmy Soufis. This goal opened the floodgates, with Arceagles captain Matt Barker levelling the scoreline. The Dees returned to the lead when Grant Rowley made a spirited run down the line, found Tim Gibson lurking near the back post to score a classic goal, despite complaints that the ball had gone out. But the Arceagles weren't done. Adam Beer and Ruben Langerak combined to level the scores and leave the game locked after an intense second half of play. Still on the main arena, Wandin and Healesville took to the court in a must-win match for the Hose. But it was Wandin which asserted its authority early. Evan Schneider scored a great left footer before Hampton hero Daniel Gracia turned up the wick, crunching home this goal. Knowing their tournament was on the line, the Hose went hard, but were having their advances resisted. And again it was Gracia who made the Hose pay. The action was getting hot and heavy, but it was to be one-way traffic as Carl Jackson fired this into the top right corner, ensuring a big lead for Wandin. To Healesville's credit, they didn't let up, but no matter what they did, there were no goals to be had. The final score all but finishing the Ho's chances of making another Cooler Cup Grand Final. Carlton and Mount Dandenong played game 14 from the Nike Arena, and the Rangers looked strong early through keeper powerhouse Nick Dean. But it was the Cocks who striked first after Kerridge laid off to Robotis in what was proving a formidable combination. The Rangers almost got one back in the second half until a spirited challenge from Joel Ryan saw the ball land at the feet of you-know-who, extending the Cocks' advantage to 2 and ensuring another victory for the men in red. Carlton was now on top of the ladder and despite its shaky start was now looking like the team to beat. South Yarra, St Kilda and Highett were up next on the main arena, and both teams were desperate for a win to keep the dream alive. The Arceagles looked poised to score early, denied by Steve Callaghan. That gave Highett a big boost, with Santander grabbing a goal to put the Howarths team in the box seat. But the second half was a different story. Cooler Cup legend Tom Shaw found the back of the net first, inspiring the Englishman. Highett scored through Howarth and Santander. Tom Shaw made this second run, finding Langerak in a favourable position to level the scores. With the match in the balance, it was again Shaw who dug deep, finding Beer, who sealed a famous 3-2 victory and giving the Arceagles a sneaky chance of a finals berth. The Arceagles had little rest, facing Carlton on the Nike Arena soon after for its final game. And with the wind in its sails, it started with a bang. Greg Giraud made the first goal his own with a solid individual effort before Ruben Langerak found Adam Beer at the back stick to double the yellow team's lead. The Cocks bounced back with Tyler Kerridge blasting home a goal late in the first half, but the Arceagles were in hot form. Matt Barker drove home this one to make the scores 3-1 before one of the most controversial incidents of the 2016 Cup. Barker clashed with Evan Robotis, with the latter firing into the netting of the Mount Evelyn Stadium. The game resumed, but the Cocks were limping, and Langerak should have converted this one. Kerridge tried some fancy feet, but Giraud stole the ball, beat another Kerridge to the ball to seal an emphatic 4-1 victory and give the Arceagles a sneaky chance of a finals berth. But with all of their games done, they would now rely on other results to make the finals. Healesville was enduring a tough tournament, and it was not going to get any better in game 17 against the Frankston Dees. Adnan Sahiti and Tim Gibson combined to get the Dees off to an early lead, and it was all one-way traffic for the Dees, even though they couldn't convert every chance. Captain Grant Rowley got in on the action to make the scores 2-0 at the end of the first half. The only change to the score was a goal for Ho's man Matt Ryan right at the full-time siren, which signalled another win for the Dees and, remarkably, the end of the Ho's chances, despite much promise from the young squad. It was a must-win game for Mount Dandenong as they took on the red-hot Wandin Warriors on the Nike Arena. Parker McKenzie gave the Rangers a dream start, bagging this super solo goal. However, that was the last time the Rangers would trouble the scorekeeper. Nathaniel Turner turned on all of the tricks to find a way past the Rangers' defence, and then Daniel Gressier got into the thick of things, belting this one past Nick Dean to give the Warriors the lead. Paul Taylor found a way past Paul Grantham, passing to Kyle Jackson, who scored yet another goal to seal the fate of Mount Dandenong, which would now need some favourable results to progress into the semi-finals. The Healesville and Highett match was a battle for pride rather than ladder position, with both teams already out of the race for a place in the finals. But there was still pride to play for, and Finlay Kerridge tried to stamp out the Highett defence, only to cop a penalty for his troubles. From the spot it was easily converted by Santander, giving Highett the early lead. Highett continued to put the hose under pressure, and when Rodrigo Alvarado spotted Phil Howarth steaming down the wing, it was 2-0. The hose waited until the second half to score, with Wes Bocello scoring a cracking left footer to bring the margin back to 1. And despite the hose woes, Bocello and Kwame Nitin found time for a celebratory dance. Inspired by his dance moves, the Tim almost got on the scoreboard himself, but it wasn't to be, as Highett continued to pile on the points, again through Santander, who was having a massive impact on the game. A late keeper run from Kerridge was cut off. Santander and Howarth should have had another too, but somehow their advances were denied. And eventually that man Santander found the back of the net to make the final score 4-1. A complete drubbing for Healesville, sending the hose home with no wins and just 4 goals from their 6 games. The Dees and Rangers faced off in their final round-robin match, and the equations were simple. The Dees were already through, and the Rangers needed a draw or win to secure a finals berth. The Dees got off to the best start with a goal for Jimmy Soufis, thanks to a great assist from Morgan Wyatt, the first female ever to compete in the Cooler Cup. Wyatt made even more history when she shouldered this ball from Aaron Yu into the goal, scoring her first Cooler Cup goal. But with their finals hopes on the line, the Rangers fought back. Ruben Pandak bagged an important goal, and the Rangers were throwing everything at the Dees. But it didn't matter what Mount Dandenong gave, Frankston had an answer. That was until Stephen Campbell stepped up to bang home the equaliser, and with no more goals coming, it secured Mount Dandenong 4th place, edging out the Arceagles for a place in the finals. The final game of the round-robin was played between the Carlton Cocks and Wandin Warriors, and with both teams already into the finals, it was a relative dead rubber. But try telling that to the Robotis brothers, who linked up early for Phil to score the easiest of opening goals. The second goal could have been an absolute ripper, but our cameraman fell asleep, missing out on Tyler Kerridge's finish. Kerridge did get one on the record, though, with this goal to make the score 3-0 at half-time. Wandin's captain, Paul Taylor, tried to take matters into his own hands, but this missed back heel landed at the feet of goal-scoring legend Phil Robotis, who knew what to do with it. The Cocks were up and about, and the goals kept coming when Dufour got this to Robotis, who was able to score even when he didn't mean it. The Warriors were able to nab 2 late goals thanks to the fast feet of young gun Nathaniel Turner, who helped Wandin save face in the second half. So, with the round-robin games over, Wandin finished on top with Carlton second, which meant Wandin should have played Mount Dandenong in the first final, but a clerical error saw the semi-finals play between Frankston and Mount Dandenong, and Wandin and Carlton. Frankston and Mount Dandenong were first up on the Nike Arena, and while the Dees were heavy favourites, it was the Mount Dandenong side which had a golden chance to get the early advantage after this handball by Tim Gibson in the box. Parker McKenzie stepped up for a spot kick, but he missed, and when Rangers goalkeeper Nick Dean went for a solo run, Dees keeper Aaron Yu snapped one from deep to put the first goal on the board. There were chances for both teams to add more to the scoreline, but goals were hard to come by. The Rangers had one final chance to send the game into overtime, but Dean's penalty attempt was thwarted, handing the Dees a grand final berth and the chance to add to its 2012 title. The second final between Wandin and Carlton saw many more goals scored, and of course it was that man Phil Robotis who got the game going with this nice turn to give the Cocks an early lead. Robotis doubled that tally with a perfect keeper throw from Aidan Kerridge to make it 2-0, and from there it was one-way traffic. Joel Ryan added to the scoreline with this goal from a narrow angle. Wandin fought back early in the second half thanks to a timely goal from Kyle Jackson. But the Cocks were relentless. Aidan Kerridge banged home this stunner from close to the halfway line, all but putting the game to bed. Tyler Kerridge got amongst the goals too before Evan Robotis wound back the clock, beating the keeper and guaranteeing the Cocks a spot in the grand final. He even gave the crowd this questionable attempt at a dab in celebration. A late goal for the Warriors' Nathaniel Turner added some respectability to the scoreline, but it wasn't enough to keep the Cocks out, setting up a tasty grand final with the Dees, a replay of the 2012 grand final. In that 2012 decider, it was the Dees which won in a penalty shootout, and right from the get-go, the men and lady from Frankston were on the hunt for a second title. But, just like previous games, it was the deadly arm of Kerridge and the heroic head of Robotis which were proving too difficult to contain. The Dees weren't done, as Rowley almost scored the equaliser. But come the second half, an aggressive challenge from Joel Ryan on Morgan Wyatt saw Robotis double the Cocks' advantage, and Ryan was being lauded as the hero. From there, the Cocks looked in control, scoring this easy tap-in. The Dees found the back of the net to give them a glimmer of hope, but it wasn't to be, as Kerridge scored the final goal of the tournament to wrap up a convincing final, the first ever for Cedric Dufour's Carlton Cocks. Phil Robotis ended the tournament with a massive 16 goals, confirming him as the Golden Boot and the tournament MVP. Hyatt's Andres Santander was the next best with 9, followed by Jimmy Soufis, Kyle Jackson and Nathaniel Turner, all on 6 goals each. In the all-time goal scorer stats, Robotis rocketed to the top, now with 28 goals ahead of the absent Tim Tupali and Cooler Cup stalwarts Tim Gibson, Phil Howarth, Tom Shaw and Cedric Dufour.
Ladies and gentlemen, Carlton Cocks 2016 Cooler Cup champion.
So, after 24 games of high-intensity futsal, the Carlton Cocks were crowned the Caroline Cooler Cup champions, the 4th team to win the title after 6 splendid years. My name is David Addison, the official voice of the Cooler Cup, and on behalf of the sponsors, officials and volunteers, I'm looking forward to the next chapter in Cooler Cup history.